Welcome, neighbors. We do have a quorum. We've got Commissioner Elkins, Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Horn, Commissioner Duncan, Commissioner Nowak is here. Commissioner Nowak will have her camera off for a little while, but Andrew Davis has his camera on. Thank you all for attending. Wanted to let everyone know that this is a special meeting, so our format for December is going to be a little bit shorter in that we're not going to have lengthy community updates at the beginning of the meeting. However, if you are here and you want to bring up a new subject or comment on anything that we bring up, we are glad you're here and we will be calling on you. You can use the raise your hand button. I think it's if you look on your screen, it's under React. Okay, it is 7 p.m. with a quorum present. The meeting has come to order. First item on the up tonight is to approve the agenda. Do I have a second? Commissioner Horn seconds the motion. There is an amendment to the agenda. We will have the addition of Wesley Seminary letter to the Zoning Commission responding to 3E's comments under official actions at the end of our things that are listed there already. And then under commission business, we are going to do the addition of testimony for legislation the council is considering regarding new car insurance requirements. Any questions, any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
All right. It's unanimous, but Commissioner Simkowitz and Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt have not joined us yet. So for the record, the vote was 5-0. Okay, we are going to give our other two commissioners a little bit of time, and I'm going to go and offer up to any of the commissioners if you have any updates, and I'm going to start with Commissioner Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There are just a few things. First of all, we have oversight hearings coming up in January, February, March on both process and then budget. And in the past, ANC3D has been very active in having witnesses there, both from the commission and from the Transportation Committee. And I would just urge my fellow commissioners and members of the public as well to consider testifying. And the reason I'm raising it now is, of course, you want to have considered comments. And so you don't want to figure out what those are the day before the hearing. And it's also good to sign up ahead of time. So we don't know what the dates are yet, but I encourage you on that. There will definitely be some witnesses on transportation, of course, coming out of the Transportation Committee. Secondly, it has become a tradition, in quotes, for 2 years straight now that that we in January consider what our priorities are for the year. I think that's been well received, and in fact, certainly this last year we've used those priorities to sort of be proactive, and it helps us be more than just a reactive organization. So I think we should have such a list again this year. I've gotten suggestions from the Transportation Committee about a number of things to do on transportation, but the priority list traditionally in the past has covered more than transportation. And so I'd be happy for anybody within the commission to take on the job of drafting that, but if no one else wants to, I'll be glad to once again do that. But I would like some input from my fellow commissioners and from our residents as you think about what would you like to see ANC3D tackle next year in terms of the delivery of services from the DC government to our neighborhood. So I encourage that. there is no December meeting of the Transportation Committee, and we'll be meeting again in January. And Madam Chairman, you might want to mention the Safe Routes to School. I leave that to you.
The Safe Routes to School is a program that ANC3D under the Transportation Committee is putting together, and we are collecting data from the key community. I'm going to try and get it out to the neighbors there, and we're hoping by January, February, we have some good data that we can make some recommendations on updating the infrastructure and maybe some really creative ways to get kids to and from school safely. And if all goes well, we're hoping to move this over to Horace Mann and any of the other schools that are around here. Okay, welcome, Commissioner Simkowitz. The agenda has been approved and we added your item, which we will do under commission business, we decided. Without further ado, our first item up is the Sibley Memorial Hospital Behavioral Health Con. Motion on the floor is to approve this letter of support. Do I have a second? Commissioner Horn. Discussion. We do have a neighbor, Miss Suntag is here. She contacted me earlier today, and I do believe that I saw on the participants a representative from Sibley Hospital. Is Raina here? Miss Jordan, are you with Sibley Hospital?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Yes, okay.
Trying to turn video on and it says I can't. It's disabled.
We are having issues. I couldn't either, and I kept trying, and then all of a sudden it let me try. Is that what happened with you, Commissioner Simkowitz?
It is.
If you keep trying, eventually there's nothing that we're doing that's preventing people from doing that. It's obviously
Okay.
a glitch, but we can hear you.
Commissioner Duncan, for that. Maybe I shouldn't have thanked you. It was just magic.
Thank
Thank you.
I am here though.
So before we open this up for comments, have you been in touch with Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt about getting this letter approved?
Have I? No. So I, after our last after our last ANC meeting, I did follow back up just to see if there was any additional, individuals you wanted me to speak to. Oh, hold on. I got a link to start my video. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
There anyone else to connect with? I did not hear back, but I'm happy to speak to anyone else who you guys may want.
I think that we're going to hear from some neighbors here in a minute, but at the last meeting we had talked about you posting on the listservs what kind of community outreach you were going to do. Like, can you tell us if like you had done that?
Yeah, I have not been able to connect with anyone else, but I did reach out to see if there were particular audiences that would be appropriate to connect with. I'm more than happy to share that, information about the process, and where we are along, and answer any questions that may occur, or that may be posed. But between this meeting and the last, I just haven't been directed to the appropriate audience to connect with. But if there are folks that you guys have in mind, please let me know, and I'm more than happy to reach out.
Well, I do think that I had called and left you a message after I had not heard from Quentin before our last November meeting, because you were on the agenda then, and we didn't bring it up because nobody was here to talk about. Anyway, I'm going to call on the neighbor so that she can ask her questions. Miss Suntag, go ahead and ask your questions or comments.
It's actually Matt Suntag. Lindsay's
Oh,
wife.
Matt, sorry. It says
Hi, how you
Lindsay.
doing?
Sorry.
So our question is really around information, which you raised. I believe at the last meeting there was a request that the neighbors be appropriately informed of this proposal. And we live about a block and a half from Sibley, so close that your staff park in front of our house to walk to work. And, you know, we haven't received any information about this proposal. And I'm assuming the same is true for other neighbors. So what we think the neighbors should be informed and have an opportunity to express a view to the ANC before they vote on this matter.
Okay, and I do apologize. I didn't get any message. And I want to make sure at the end of this that you guys have the appropriate contact information, because I did reach out via email, so I'm more than happy to share it, but it certainly wasn't done in vain. I'm more than happy to make sure that we're reaching the appropriate folks. So I do apologize, but if there's any particular group or listserv that as our ANC that you guys are aware of that I should connect with, please let me know, and I'm happy to share that information. But I'll also share that this is quite a little bit of a timeline. I have my colleague Alex on, who can give us more information about what that timeline looks like. But you know, if it's and I actually have a presentation in front of me if you guys want me to share my screen in terms of the timeline. But it could give us just a little bit better idea that this wouldn't even be activated until well into calendar year 2026. So we do have time, but I do want to make sure that everyone has their questions answered and that we make sure everyone is comfortable before moving forward. So if there's any question I can answer right now, more than happy to, but also, again, more than happy to connect with anyone else outside of this call. But I apologize for the missed messages. And I'm going to drop my information into the chat to make sure everyone has the appropriate numbers and contact info.
Commissioner Nohawk, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this vote until we do get community feedback. And Ms. Johnson, the Palisades listserv is the one that you should be posting to that will reach a large majority of the neighbors. It's palisades@groups.io. And if you send a request to join for yourself or somebody else on your staff, we will make sure that you are able to do so and get the message out there and get some information out there for our neighbors.
Okay.
I'm also going to put here in the chat, you can go to palisadesdc.org and there's a link to just get on the listserv that way too. Commissioner Elkins.
Well, I wanted to support the recommendation of Commissioner Nowak. And here's why. I do think that this proposal from Sibley is probably not terribly controversial. I can imagine a number of things that the hospital might do in the future that might be of more interest and concern to the neighborhood. But I think there's a principle here, and that is one that I think we've established quite effectively with the universities in our neighborhood, and I would like to establish it with Sibley as well, and that is that when changes are taking place, that just as a matter of uniform or the normal procedure, that the hospital reaches out to the nearby neighbors, which can be done by the Palisades listserv, is quite easy to do, and simply informs neighbors and lets people come back in, ask questions and express concerns or whatever. That allows us as commissioners who are trying to reflect our understanding about how the neighborhoods feel about various things going on, to be able to vote with some understanding of how the neighbors feel, as opposed to having to imagine that on our own, which will not be as nearly as accurate. So although I think this particular item, I'm happy that we will not be delaying Sibley in their action, and we can essentially go through the appropriate process this time and maybe establish a precedent about how the hospital will do this in the future, and we'll be glad to work with the hospital. We're not just saying go do it and we'll talk to us later, but no, we're quite willing to work with you on how to do that and to help you facilitate it. But that is the reason I think that we should table this motion.
All right, I'm gonna take that as a second to Marilyn's motion. I forgot to ask for a second. So
Yes.
there is a motion to table this from Commissioner Nowak, and Commissioner Elkins has seconded that motion, and we can continue some discussion here. You know, Ms. Jordan, I'd just like to say that I concur with everything that Chuck says. I don't see anything here that is wildly controversial, but I just think that we have a lot of institutions that are in and next to ANC3D. They're all on our listservs. They all are posting. And I think that you should also look at Nextdoor, because most of the people in Spring Valley across from Dale Carlia are going to be on that platform. And then everyone across Loughborough and down across MacArthur is going to be on the community listserv.
Palisades, on the Palisades.
On the Palisades Groups IO listserv that you can get to from that website I posted in the chat.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
And I'm going to, I will send you my, my cell phone number so you have it. Is there any other discussion? Okay, I'm going to call the question. Motion to table this until our February meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Davis, did I hear a vote?
Aye, excuse me.
Commissioner Simpson?
Aye.
Okay, great. The motion is unanimous. That would be 6-0. Thank you for coming. We will get this right, and everyone will be happier for it. And if you came to ask questions about this, and if you contacted me earlier today, thank you very much. Next item is motion on the floor to approve the Hardy PTO grant. Is there a second? Commissioner Horn seconds the motion. Good news is OANC sent us a approval that this is something that we can spend money on. So is there any discussion? This took a long time, but motion on the floor is to approve the grant to the Hardy PTO. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for coming, and we will be reaching out to you on the next steps in terms of funding, but congratulations.
Great, thank you. And I just wanted to hop on and say thank you so much for consideration of the grant, and we really appreciate it. Hardy serves Key and Man families and is doing its best to provide really rigorous academic experiences, and your grant will fund participation in 2 academic competitions for available to all the students at Hardy. So we're excited to be able to thank you all for that contribution and investment.
Commissioner Elkins, did you want to chime in?
Just to, yes, that's a great grant, and I would just hope that we have a procedure that we need to report from you after the grant, and it allows us to keep our records straight. So if you could, you know, I think you'll find that in our guidelines, and I'm sure you plan to do that. It would just make it so much easier to have that, and so we don't have to come ask you. Thank you.
Will do. Yes, we plan to keep careful records, and we'll report back, and are happy to share photos if we happen to win or place in any of these competitions. We'll be sure to thank you and provide photos if you'd like to share them with your communities.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Next item up is 4892 and 4894 MacArthur Boulevard Public Space Application. Commissioner Horn, would you like to make a motion? Oh, you're on mute. So you are not muted, but we still cannot hear you. It shows that you're unmuted, but no sound is coming out. So why we hopefully figure out that tech. I'm gonna just make the motion so we can get this started. Motion on the floor is to approve public space application 458437 for the driveway at 4892 and 4894 MacArthur. Is there a second? Commissioner Simkwitz seconds the motion. All right, it does say you're muted now, Commissioner Horn. Now you're unmuted.
Maybe the commissioner should go out and come back in and test his
Sometimes that helps.
phone as he comes and test his
We've
microphone as he comes back in.
We've had problems. All right, he's coming back in. We're under discussion. Did anyone feel like they needed to see the drawing here? Does everyone remember? Did you read what was sent around? So this is on MacArthur near the library and the Safeway site. And there was a big tree there. And the new driveway that is serving 2 new homes curved around this big tree and went into it as a shared driveway. It just so happens that DDOT took down that tree because it was diseased. And you may have seen a flurry of discussion on the community listserv about that particular tree. And so now the builder would like to straighten out the driveway where the old tree was, and now they get to plant 2 trees, which they intend to do in place of the one that DDOT just removed. Commissioner Horn, do you want to say something to see if it's working? Oh no, it's still, do me a favor, try and hit one of the volume buttons on your computer.
There's also the choice under your audio to choose various microphones if you have more than one microphone. That little caret right next to the microphone at the bottom of the screen.
We cannot hear you. We do have the chat if there's something you want to
Put
say.
something in the chat.
Does anyone have any questions? The engineer is here if you have any technical questions. I intend to vote for this. All right, without any further questions, motion on the floor is to support PSA application 458437. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, 6-0. Next item, motion on the floor is to approve 4822 Rodman Street, public space application 458434. Do I have a second? Commissioner Davis seconds the motion. Catherine, do you think you can go in the folder and pull up the site plan? Because I think we all need to understand what is
I'm happy to
being
share
built.
it as well, Tricia, if you'd like.
Oh, you will? Okay, actually, we have
Mhm.
Mr. Landsman here with Cass Engineering. We can
You
let
have to make me
him.
a host and then I can pull it up if you'd like.
I've just shared my screen.
You can share your screen. You're authorized to go on it and share your screen, Mr. Lansing.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Right.
So
There it
that's
is. I think Catherine is sharing.
Okay,
right,
so
this
these
is
existing
existing.
conditions. You want to look at the new proposed conditions?
Okay, let's go back to the old one real quick.
Sure.
The
I'm happy to
driveway
give you a
there.
little rundown if you'd like, or a
Yeah,
summary
why don't you go
quickly.
ahead and talk about how it was a single driveway, where the lead
Sure.
walk is.
Right, so right now the driveway goes up gradient from Rodman to a first floor garage. You see sort of the bottom right-hand corner of the page there. We're doing a new building, so we'll be keeping the driveway in largely the same location, single width, but we want to do a 2-car garage, more commensurate with the house and the loading of the 2 multiple garages. So we'll be widening it after the apron or after the sidewalk rather, and going down into a lower level garage. So the driveway, instead of sloping up to the first floor, will slope down into the cellar or the lower level.
And then can you explain to us like how the rainwater is captured on the site and the drainage there?
So the entire driveway will slope from the back of the sidewalk down towards the home as you're driving down into a lower level garage. At the bottom of that driveway, we'll have 2 trench drains or strip drains. We'll capture the water, we'll go into an internal pump and be pumped into our stormwater management system that's located in the backyard. So we'll be taking that water and keeping it on site and treating it in accordance with DOEE and DDOT regulations.
And then are you in the public space there with the lead walk? Is it basically just reconstructing what was there?
Correct. Making it a little bit more orderly than what's there and replacing it. But it's, you can see it's in generally the same location. It aligns with that walkway between the sidewalk and the curb line. So
Can you
that
go
won't
back to
change visually.
the picture of the
Sure.
home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you can see the driveway slopes up a little bit there, but it's going to slope down.
Correct. We're
anyone's
almost
been
mirroring
to
that
my
and
house.
going lower level.
That's how it is at my house. Commissioner Elkins?
Mr. Landsman, I had a more generic question. I'm happy to see that you are collecting the stormwater and putting it on, dealing with it on the site. Are there cases where that's not required by anymore presently by DOEE? I mean, is this the current requirement now? I hope it is, but are there exceptions to that? Maybe that's too general.
No, that's a fair question and not unfortunately not a black and white question, but I'll attempt to answer it. So on most sites or on all sites, you're required to treat your private property water. So anything behind the property line on, that's a firm, you have to hit a certain quantity and quality number, and that's fixed. In public space, they have a process which is they refer to as the maximum extent practicable. So what it is, it's a little bit more of leeway for DDOT and DOEE to say that some sites can't treat or can't hit the full stormwater volume number. On a case like this, I'm taking it back to my site. I have to deal with it on my site. I'm hitting the number. On other cases, thinking of a driveway that's sloped the opposite way, I wouldn't be putting a underground storage system in public space because DDOT wouldn't let us. But we may do something that's a little less intensive, like permeable pavement, which will have a lower storage number. So they would approve that, and it's sort of they look at it more holistically. What can you do, and it's a little bit more of a discussion. But the expectation is that you do something with it and you do treat it. So it's just a matter of where and how much you're able to, or what kind of volume you're able to get for it.
Good. Well, thank you very much. That is very helpful. I appreciate it.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Can you go back to the new plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Have people been doing this in the public space where you have a single curb cut, but then you widen to a double driveway?
Have been. It's really the only way to front load a double car garage. Not super common, but especially in Spring Valley where you have these wider lots, a lot of those houses want to have the double garage door. In some other parts of Palisades, you have the 50-foot wide lots where you have a single wide garage. So it's sort of site and home dependent. But I wouldn't say it's uncommon.
Do any of the commissioners have any other questions? All right, motion on the floor is to approve this application. All those in favor? Any opposition? All right, passes 6-0. Mr. Landsman, do you know when your public space, when we
I
need to
believe
get
will
this?
be the end of January. So
Okay.
we have some time on this one. It's not going to
Okay.
be on the December
We'll get
Public
letters
Space
over
Committee
to
if that's
them,
what you're
so-
asking.
Okay,
Not a big
yes,
rush.
that's exactly what I'm
Thank you for asking, though.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, our last item under official actions is a letter to the zoning commission regarding ANC3E's comments about the Wesley Seminary text amendment. Motion on the floor is to approve this submission to the zoning commission. Do I have a second? Commissioner Nowak seconds the motion. Commissioner Elkins, I'm going to hand it over to you to tee this up.
Okay, thank you. Well, this commission has met many, many times on this Wesley Theological Seminary issue, and I thank my fellow commissioners for your tolerance. The issue is still pending, but we're coming down to the end of it. Pending before the zoning commission are text amendments, which would be step one of a step two process, a two-step process in which the zoning regulations are amended to allow them to build such a dormitory. This is a dormitory that serves both American University and Wesley University students, as you remember, so that's why it's unusual. And it would essentially say that this zoning, these text amendments would not be operative unless there is an approved campus plan as well. So the second step is the campus plan. Now, we've gone through a number of campus plan reviews on this commission before, but this would bring the commission, bring the campus plan back up for the last time, I believe, for final decision by the zoning commission. Now, one of the issues that has really been controversial, appropriately, is the commitment by Wesley with regard to what to do about affordable housing. And at first they were going to provide affordable housing on the campus. Now they are proposing to provide it off campus, which makes a lot more sense. And I think everyone is in favor of that, but the details of that have not been worked out. In the meantime, our colleagues at ANC3D have been very active on this affordable housing issue appropriately. And have been raising, what is the amount of affordable housing that Wesley should have to provide in order to receive approval by the zoning commission. This is certainly a legitimate issue. And the problem with solving that problem, in my view, and that's what this letter is about, the problem with solving that problem at this time in the context of the text amendments, which is only step one of a two-step process, is that we don't have Wesley's final proposal about what, or really a detailed proposal, what they can afford to do and will do with regard to affordable housing. And the concern that I bring to you as my fellow commissioners is that there are a number of factors which we've addressed over these several years that influence whether or not this dormitory should be built, including whether or not it has an adverse effect on the neighborhood, and the need for encouraging Wesley to stay if they can. This dormitory hopefully would make it possible for them to stay and be a neighbor for foreseeable future. But those factors are in addition to whether or not the affordable housing formula and the amount of money that they're willing to put in is appropriate. So this letter is suggesting to the zoning commission that rather than deciding exactly how much affordable housing Wesley should have to provide, before we hear from Wesley with regard to that matter, instead to allow that decision to be made in the campus plan, in which all the parties can participate. In these text amendments, it's not really, nobody's a party, it's just sort of a regulatory matter. So it's not as fulsome as a hearing on a campus plan, and all the parties can participate, look at all the factors, look at what Wesley is proposing and either thumbs up or thumbs down. And then the zoning, with those ideas expressed by the parties, reflecting hopefully some of the members of the public, then the zoning commission can make its final decision. They have all the facts and all the factors in front of them. So this, and the reason this, let me just finish up by saying, the reason this is so important for us to speak on this issue is because our colleagues at ANC3E have proposed two approaches to this problem, one of which is to resolve this affordable housing issue now at the time of the text amendments. And the other option is to leave it for decision at the campus plan. And at the end of their letter, ANC3E is in favor of deciding it now at the time of the text amendment. And this seems to, in my view, to keep the other parties from playing a role in deciding what the total package looks like and whether the total package, including affordable housing, is satisfactory or not. And so this letter urges the zoning commission to defer that decision until the full campus plan. So thank you for your tolerance in my long speech.
Commissioner Simkowitz?
Yeah, I've got a question for Mr. Brown. Is there a precedent for a property owner to provide affordable housing offsite? For example, if an extremely luxury building like Washington Harbor, where condos sell for $5 million and more, could they buy offsite units so the affordable housing people wouldn't have to live in their building and they'd have to live somewhere else?
There is a procedure existing in the regulations currently that would allow your IZ, affordable housing, to be moved off-site for economic hardship reasons. There haven't been many cases where the IZ has been provided off-site. It's been very carefully monitored, but the procedure is there. It has occurred. And the text amendment language as it currently exists for IZ off-site here is basically it imposes at a minimum the standard IZ requirements. The text amendment is written not less than the amount of IZ that's required, subject to the campus plan approval process, which would allow you to exceed the minimum. It would not allow you to fall below the minimum, but it sets a floor, not a ceiling.
Have these ever been approved by anybody in DC, or have they just been suggested?
There have been economic hardship arguments made in through the zoning regulation process.
But I understand that
many.
they've been made. Have they been approved?
Yes, but I don't know the details of them, and they were very specific circumstances.
And the other question I have is, why can't the owner of this property just have the IZ residents live on site? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of college students that go to AU or Wesley that would fall into this level, which would, allow them to put these individuals there on the site rather than having to buy a site somewhere else and put them up there.
Two reasons. First, and I think this partially goes back to IZ was never contemplated for student housing, but the regulations, not the zoning regulations, but the statute and the DHCD regulations basically exclude students from participating in inclusionary zoning. An offshoot of that is that IZ beds or rooms or space are typically filled through a lottery, which would then bring people who were non-students into the building, which is not appropriate. And then when we offered to institute a private student-only affordable housing program, which Landmark has administered in other properties nationwide, the pushback from that from many corners, I won't specify who, but I think there was a broad consensus that a private IZ program for students in this building was not something that people felt comfortable with or wanted to see approved. So the end result is, if we're going to provide IZ, it has to be off-site, and certainly ANC3E as well as Wesley are very much committed toward contributing to what is really a significant lack of IZ in Ward 3.
I would like to add my comments to Commissioner Simquitz's questions, because those were some of the questions that I had when I was going through all of these back and forth with IZ. So I was told by someone, I cannot remember his name, but he helps sort of administer IZ in the city. And he told me that traditional IZ housing helps DC residents. And the way housing works, they just don't think it's appropriate for, let's say a single mom with a kid to live around a bunch of students. And dormitories in general that are on campus are totally excluded from IZ. And the IZ requirements, like sort of all parties were saying, if we make this for the students who are coming here, who are already getting financial aid and FAFSA and all of this jazz, we want our IZ affordable units going to our, not necessarily a group that already has access to a lot of money. So there was that component to it. It is also known to me that the underlying zoning of this property for Wesley could hold, let's say, luxury townhomes. I think it may actually be single family homes, although I don't think so. I think when I saw the zoning, if there were 70 townhomes on that, if Wesley were to go away and sell to a developer, we're looking at maybe 6 units that would be affordable. Whereas this fund, or whatever you want to put it, where they're going to contribute to IZ housing somewhere else, I have come to the conclusion I don't think it's a terrible idea. Did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I mean, I keep going back to the fact that I think this is a bad proposal of having a private dorm. I don't know why AU and Wesley couldn't have self-financed this thing. I see nothing but problems with this in the future, and I'm still going to vote no on this.
If I could, Commissioner Simkowitz, the concept of dormitories being built by private entities on campuses is actually kind of the here and now. In a recent filing we made, we cited just a handful of, basically in the last 90 days, of substantial on-campus housing being built by private developers. So that's the wave of the future. And Wesley may be first, but they're not going to be last.
I mean, that may be true, but I think that they should have gone to the council and gotten some sort of approval for this before, not go through this zoning process. Again, I'm a practicing attorney, and I see, the when things go bad, a landlord-tenant case. I think that this is going to be significantly problematic, extremely problematic, when you got somebody that violates a rule and they can't be thrown out because they're subject to landlord-tenant laws or non-payment of rent. I think that it should be called a dorm, and I know you guys have tried very hard not to call it a dorm, but basically it's a dorm, and we're just gonna have a difference of opinion on this.
Well, we've called it a dorm from day one.
It's
It's
not
a dorm.
It's not
What?
a dorm. It's not a dorm. It's a private apartment building that's operated by a private entity that's not a school. If the
Well,
school operated it, would be a dorm. It's not. It's a private entity that's operating it.
We'll agree to disagree on that. We refer to it as a dormitory, and we're not going to change that. But we can
I also would like
disagree.
to point out that the zoning commission has to accept our letter, because technically, I don't know if you said this, Chuck, but technically the record's closed. So
That's correct.
we may vote on this and they have to agree to take it.
So the opening sentence is we're asking the zoning commission to reopen the record. They may or may not. But I think we have strong grounds for their doing so, since the 3E specific proposals were introduced after the hearing was closed. So we'll see how the zoning commission treats that.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor of submitting this to the zoning commission in support of Commissioner Elkins' letter? All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, it passes 5-1. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
All right, we are going to move on to commission business, and this is where we're going to have our addition of an item. And I'm going to let you introduce this, JP, and give us a little bit of the background. Catherine has the letter that you sent around, and we ended up doing this in commission business because ANC3D years ago already approved this. And if we are sending it, or if you're going to testify before the council with this legislation, I hope you tell us about, this would be the place to do it. So that's why we're in commission business. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson Duncan. In March of 2020, the week before the pandemic started, we had a meeting, and it was going to be the last meeting we've ever had. And where we were at Wesley Seminary. It was in open public meeting, and then we went to Zoom. But we, Commissioner Elkins and I, worked very hard on this letter, which basically asks the council to introduce legislation increasing the insurance minimums for drivers in the District of Columbia. And the previous limit, minimum limit that you had to have is $25,000. And that was enacted in 1986. And even in 1986, my dad's a lawyer. I remember him saying that's way too low, because if somebody hits you, you're a pedestrian walking down the street. And I'll give you a typical scenario. Somebody moves to DC from Idaho or somewhere. They aren't living in their parents' house anymore, so they don't get the benefit of their parents' underinsurance policy or uninsurance policy. They're on their own. They're crossing a street. They get hit by a car, including a taxi cab. Many people only have that $25,000 policy, and if that young person is hospitalized for 2 weeks, you're going to exceed that $25,000 really fast. That doesn't include your pain and suffering. It doesn't include missed time from work. It's really not sufficient. So in 2020, we proactively identified this for the council, and for a lot of reasons, probably COVID being number one, the council didn't take action until recently. And today I received a call from one of our constituents that said, "Hey, did you know that the council hasn't your idea pending?" I said, "No, I had no idea about that." And apparently it's up for a vote in December, which is why there's some urgency here. And the law is called the Motor Vehicle Insurance Modernization Amendment Act of 2024. And it's the modernization of our limits to go up from $25,000. And frankly, I don't know what it's going to go up to. There's some kind of trigger based on the cost of living. And that is exactly what Commissioner Elkins and I introduced 4 years ago. And it's good that the council's finally taking action on that. And I think it's going to help a lot of people in DC that they don't have to go bankrupt when they get, through no fault of their own, hit by a car, either as a pedestrian or as somebody riding in a car. So that is what our resolution is about. It's basically thanking the council for this amendment, and it's we're citing our letter before, so we don't have to retype everything, because our letter was pretty thorough. And if somebody wants to read it, it's up on our website apparently, and they can go to the website and read it.
I have a question. Are you thinking about testifying too?
To be honest, I hadn't thought about testifying. I think it's clear that our letter is sufficient. I don't think we need to go testify on this.
Okay.
But you could submit your testimony in writing, and I think maybe I would suggest that's what we approved tonight, that you testify and essentially forward this letter to the council and essentially support the legislation.
Well, I think we can get away with it by doing a second resolution that says, hey, we did this 4 years ago. You know, here it is. I don't think we need to go through the testimony route on this.
Well, my only concern is there was no notice of this issue, JP, and you know, I'm a stickler for public notice on the issues that we take up here.
But we already approved it.
Endorsing our own our own letter of was it 2020? I mean, that doesn't take any notice. But if we're going to adopt a new resolution about what the insurance rates ought to be for motor vehicles, we really would need to let our constituents tell us if we're going to take a new position. But if we have an old position, it's not a notice problem.
So I have a question. I just looked up the bill, which says that the levels would now go to $50,000 or $100,000. I'd have to read through it in more detail to figure out what would cause it to be one versus the other.
It's 50 per person, 100 per accident. So if you've got 3
And is
people,
that what you recommended, JP? Is that in that 2020 resolution that the ANC did? Did we recommend those levels?
No, I think we discussed even higher levels. I think we and Commissioner Elkins can maybe has a better memory than I do, but I think we were looking at higher levels, and for a variety of reasons, the council only did 50 and 100. I would have done 250 and 500, but you know, I guess I'm more liberal than the council. It's kind of funny.
Comment, Chairman. We have a comment from our moker.
Actually, no, he wants to be, well, did you want to comment on this, Mr. Cox, or are you still raising your hand to be introduced? Yeah, he's going to be, he's our new moker, so he and I have been chatting. He's going to be introduced
okay.
after we,
So is the motion on the floor that we write a letter that reinforces our letter of 2020, our recommendation of 2020?
That's all it says.
Okay.
all right, I'm going to do this formally. The motion on the floor is that we write a new letter that reinforces what ANC3D voted on in March of 2020.
Madam Chairman, I have a friendly amendment, I hope, and
Yes.
that letter be introduced formally as testimony in the hearing. Otherwise, it's not going to be considered, I would argue. It needs to go into the hearing, into the docket for the hearing.
It doesn't require you to actually show up in person, JP.
It will take you 30 seconds. Or
Okay.
we can do it for you.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do that. It just goes into the record and you
Yeah,
upload the
I
testimony.
think I accept that friendly amendment, Commissioner Elkins, and maybe you can provide the language for that. It sounds like it's not going to be that hard.
It's simply that this letter be introduced as the testimony from ANC3D at the hearing.
Perfect. And I also attached the letter from 2020. So it's our new letter plus the one that we did in 2020 to be considered together as a whole.
We can
But
do
is
that. We can
there-
put it in
Is there
one
new
PDF.
text of this letter? I have not seen the text of it.
I just sent it over after I sent the old letter and the Councilmember Mendelson's bill. I sent those together, and then I sent a second email that had the new language. And maybe Catherine can pull
I
that
don't
up.
want to be a stickler, but really, it's one thing to send our old letter in as testimony. It's another thing to take up a whole new letter without notice to our public on an issue which they care about. It's not trivial. And for us to approve a new letter, I have not seen the text, so it's hard for me to address it. But I think this is a procedure issue.
Well, then we can send our old letter, and that's it.
Yeah,
You know, the old letter is comprehensive. The new letter just says, "Hey, read the old letter."
right.
I think we can do both. So I think that in an effort to split the baby, can't the new letter say, on December 4th, we voted to reiterate our old letter herein attached as Exhibit A.
Yes.
Please put us on the record for the hearing. so getting back to what Chuck said for the testimony as well.
Mhm.
So we're not treading any new ground
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Commissioner Elkins' concern.
And
That's fine with me,
Commissioner,
Commissioner Elkins.
Commissioner
And, thank
Elkins,
you, Commissioner Nowak.
Catherine and I can get that buttoned up
I think that-
when we do our admin post meeting.
And people all around the city will thank us for this because we really led the charge on this 4 years ago. I think we started 5 years ago, and we needed to get our information straight. So we went and looked at a bunch of other states, and we looked at insurance costs. We did our homework back then, and that eventually led to the council, I think, doing this 4 years late, but they still got it done.
Mhm.
So we have to thank them for that.
That's pretty fast for this council. And I think, just for the record, JP deserves 100% credit for his initiative to bring this to the commission.
Thank you.
Although I endorsed it and I helped him, write the letter, but 100% for JP.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of submitting this as testimony to the council for this new legislation? All those in favor? All right, passes unanimously, 6-0. I am going to do a quick aside to give our new moker a chance to introduce himself, Mr. William Owen Cox.
Hello, everyone. My name is William Owen Cox. I am the new Mokers Liaison, the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services for Ward 3. So I'm just wanting to introduce myself. And I believe your last meeting, you met my manager, Kendall. I posted my information and my manager's information in the chat. So if there's any issues that you have concerning anything in Ward 3, or you need to reach out to the mayor's office for any issues, say there's some 311 issue that you need us to get in touch with DDOT, for example, we can do that. So please reach out if you need anything, and I'll be happy to help. Again, thank you for the time, and look forward to working with all of you in the future.
I see you put your cell phone number in the chat, so I am furiously writing it down right now. Thank you. And our next meeting is going to be on January 8th, and it will be a regularly scheduled meeting. Which brings me to my last item, our January elections.
I
So
got one question real quick. Mr. Cox,
yes.
is your phone number the same as Matthew Barclay's? Do they carry over?
I believe the phone that I received was actually from the Ward 7 Moker previously. But that is the one that I've been using. So that's the best way to get in touch with me, either that or through email.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
It is not the same number, JP, because I just looked it up. It's different. The swearing in ceremony for all ANCs is scheduled for January 2nd at 2:30. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. If you're not sworn in by January 8th, when we have our meeting, you cannot participate in any of the votes. And I do believe that after the new election, we all need to be sworn in again. In addition, at our January.
If we can't make that meeting, I was sworn in by Mayor Bowser herself at a different time, and I think Councilmember Fruman or any DC Superior Court judge can swear people in. You just have to make an arrangement on your own to do that.
Correct. I know that Councilmember Fruman had something at his house where there was like 10 people who came and he did it all at once. But I hope that if you can't make the January 2nd, that you make arrangements to get it done before January 8th.
Yeah.
In addition, we are going to be voting on new officers here at ANC3D. You can only serve 2 terms, which I think we are all capped out. So over the rest of the month, I may be reaching out. It would be nice if we came to a behind the scenes sort of idea of who might want what. It might work out nicely, or we might have, you know, people vying for certain jobs, which would also be great for democracy. In addition, Catherine and I will work up a calendar for next year that we will circulate, because we also will need to vote on that in January for the next 12 months. Commissioner Simkowitz?
I'd like to thank everybody, Chairperson Duncan, Vice Chair Horn, Treasurer Nowak, and Secretary Davis. You guys have all done an outstanding job. Commissioner Duncan, you've kept the meetings rolling, and I think we've set records for time on many of our days. And after sitting through our 5-hour meetings with our commission previously, which had 10 members, this is a blessing, and it's a thankless job for you guys, and I think you've all done a great job. And Commissioner Nowak, your treasury reports were great, so thank you, Commissioner Nowak. Secretary Davis, your minutes were great, and Vice Chair Horn, thanks for just being there in case you're needed.
I appreciate that, JP. Thank you. Commissioner Elkins?
One item that's coming up in January is the quarterly financial report, which I'm just really hoping that Commissioner Nowak, although she will not be treasurer because she's termed out in January, will complete that report for us in January, because whoever is treasurer will be brand new and not know what the heck to do. So I hope, is that something that you would plan, even though you may not submit all the documents until January, that you could get that all buttoned up?
Yes, yes. And it was my plan to actually prepare the report and then walk the new treasurer through it, so that the new treasurer could be the one who formally introduces the motion to have it approved. But it's an easy training opportunity for an
Sure.
on-the-job primer.
That would make sense as well. Yes.
I would like to thank everyone. This job is sometimes not easy, and I think we have a really, really thoughtful group here. So I want to thank my colleagues, and Commissioner Davis. I know I said this to you privately, but I think you made a big difference, and we will miss you. And I hope we still see you on the Transportation Committee, and I'll be calling you to get your opinion on this, that, and the other. So.
I hope so. Well, let me just give a quick shout out to Catherine too. I can't take credit for the the meeting minutes. Catherine really puts all this together. So thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. Life is so much better with Catherine. Commissioner Elkins.
Really is.
Commissioner Elkins, did you want to say something?
Yes, I really think here at the end of the year, we should make a special thank you for Chairperson Duncan. She has led us in an admirable way, and a lot of work to it. I think you may not realize how much work there is to be a chairperson, and she has really risen to the heights of doing that, and I think we should commend her, and so I give her a big hand here.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I appreciate that. We had great participation from the public today too, so thank you all for coming. I hope everyone has a wonderful December, and we will see everyone after the new year.
Do we need a motion to adjourn, Madam Chair? That's your last
Motion
last
to
item.
adjourn. Is there a second? Without objection, the meeting is adjourned. Thank
Thanks
you all. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Catherine. Happy holidays, everybody.
Bye-bye.